Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. I hope you are doing well. And today we are having an exclusive interview and conversation with the one, the only producer and DJ extraordinaire, absolute fucking legend, Mr. DJ Premier. Thanks for coming through, man.
Thanks for having me.
I'm
Yeah.
actually kind of like blown away that you're here. I mean, I obviously I know you're real, you know. It's but I'm just blessed that that you came through and I got this opportunity to talk to you.
Yeah, man, it's good to be here. It's been a really crazy week doing press and promo. I'm very used to the walking that road because my Gang Starr journey's been extensive and
Right.
recipes guru, by the way. But and for us just doing so much to set up our records, even when we extended the family with putting out J. Rue the Damager records and Group Home. Same thing. And Big Suge, we're used to the promo run. It's funny because I was talking to Malachi the Nutcracker the other day, and when Jay-Z had a 12-inch single on Payday Records, which was my former manager Patrick Moxie's label. But he was like, remember when we were doing promo in the van and it was Jay-Z, Group Home, J. Rue the Damager, and Big Suge, and we were running around doing radio. And, just think the billionaire Jay-Z was in the van with all of us.
And that
for the 12-inch single.
and now that promo is happening over Twitch.
Oh yeah. So
Well, let's talk about what makes this evening an occasion for you. You have this project dropping tonight.
yeah.
We're just like hours away from it being released and for everybody to hear it. It's got a ton of material on it, a ton of features. How long has this project been coming together, has been bubbling up? Because it seems like a pretty huge release for you.
Yeah, it started to come together once I was approached by Mass Appeal, Peter, Bittenbender, and Nas, of course, the business partners, and shot to Exit as well. They approached me about being a part of this. And when they broke it down to us, they said it was going to be 10 producers. 9 of them are already slated to drop, because it's Hip Hop 50, which is the concept, which is to salute the celebration of 50 years of hip hop existing from the official birthday, which is August 11th, 1973. So next year will be the 50th birthday. So the EPs are dropping, I think, every 3 months, so that when the 10th one drops, it'll be on the birthday of the hip hop's born day. So the first 9 producers are already chosen, and one of them is an R&B EP. Each producer drops a EP of just 5 songs, whatever the artist they choose, and then the 10th one is going to be chosen by the fans. So I guess maybe when they get closer to that, near the 10th, they'll have the fans vote on who they want to do the 10th one.
Okay.
And whoever gets it gets to do that particular EP.
Okay.
Which I think is dope too. Let's see what the fans choose, So, but it's an eclectic roster. I'm on there. Swiss Beats is on there. I know Hit Boy's on there. Mustard. The Dream is going to do the R&B one. And there's a few more, names on there that I can't think of right off rip. Matter of fact, the crazy thing is let me see if I can find it on Hip Hop 50.
Mike Will made it. Looks like he's going to be in the mix too. No ID.
Yeah, no ID. Ooh.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear that one. So that's really what it is. So you have that list then.
Yeah, no, I do. So you're saying each producer here is going to have like their own batch of tracks that they're kind of curating on their own, and it's all going to be released like in chunks.
Yeah, I think they said every 2 to 3 months so that it coincides with every release to lead up to the 10th one, which will be on the birthday of hip hop's the 50th birthday of hip hop's birth.
Got it. So you have this chunk of it that you're responsible for. Like going into it, what was like your mindset? Was it to merely play to, which obviously you're entitled to, like play toward the sounds and the aesthetics that obviously you forged and helped create? Or, did you have kind of like a wider vision for it given the 50th birthday and given kind of just like the wide span of stylistically that we've seen hip hop kind of, undergo over the years?
Yeah, a little of both because of the fact that I was going first. That
You're right.
You know, that's pressure too. It's like
Absolutely.
you're setting the first tone, and obviously every producer is going to bring a whole different style to it, and all of that was on my mind as well. And on top of that, I've never done an EP, so
Right.
5 songs is it's like, I'd like a nice 10,
Mm.
but 5 songs you're cramming to just get a. It's almost like when they say who's your top five. I can't do it, and I've done them,
Mm.
but I have more than the top five. I'm like, yeah, if it's top five, I want to turn to 20.
Mm.
Same thing with this. I'd like to. I would have loved to have it 10 to 12, but since it was five, I'm like, well, what's the best way to make it a nice five that still is relatable to me? I'm gonna keep the sound, the premier sound there, so that part's already there. And then Nas said, when we met about even being a part of it, he said, I got you on at least one song
Mm-hmm.
on the EP. So I was like, okay, I get a Nas record.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter what it's gonna be, that's happening. And now I could kind of just put that on the back burner. Who are the other four?
Mm-hmm.
So Run the Jewels just kicked in my mind because they're a duo. It reminds me of Gang Starr. And the fact that, and I know they're both MCs and they're just not a DJ MC duo, but it's something about Run the Jewels and just what they represent. And we'd already worked together on the Ooh La La record.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just, and then on top of that, I just thought with their fan base and how much they have such a following, I said putting them on there would be really ill as one of the groups. That was one of the first ones that I created to send out to see if they would get on it. First one I sent was more of a 90, between like 93, 94 tempo. And LP was like, yo, we more in the 80s tempo. Can you slow it down a little bit and maybe make it a little darker? And I was like, you got it. And then I scrapped the first beat
Mm.
and made a brand new one. And I was just messing around with scratches, looking for ideas. And I was like, I remember Busta Rhymes says on Annie a remix, when I popped that too, nigga, run your damn jewels. And that made me go, run the jewels. Let me see if I can make it fit. And the thing is, I mixed that record back when MOP put it out. Shout to DR Period who produced it. But when I remixed it, when I mixed it, I wasn't on Pro Tools. I was on a reel on tape. If
Right.
I and I have the acapella, but the only thing is the acapella is run with all the busters, huh, huh, and all that stuff. Ha! So even if you hear some of the scratches on it, it goes run your damn jaw, and you hear like right before he says before I fuck around and slay, you hear the right in there, and you can't really get it out.
Mm-hmm.
If I had the real and able to mute that track, I could get it. So I was like, you know what, let me leave it like it is.
Mm.
It's hip hop. And you listen to the old scratches, and back in the 80s, a lot of artists would have a little bit of the line not get cut off when they were scratching. So if they could do it, I could do it.
Right.
So
Exactly.
I sent it to them with the run. I didn't have the hook scratch. And when I sent it out to them, they were like, yo, this is it. He said, Mike wants to set the tone of the rhymes. And he said, I'm going to bounce off of Mike. And Mike sent me texted me a couple of days later, like, yo, what do you think? If you like what I'm doing, I'm going to continue further. It's not for the full rhyme. Sent me a portion of it. I was like, keep going. This is it.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gave it to LP, and we got our first record down.
Nice. Well, who else did you field for the other tracks?
Remy Ma was already a thought because my manager works with her as well. And Pat, I actually met my manager through Papoose.
Mm-hmm. And you have long history with her. So
so with us being longtime friends and everything, she was just here on some other business, and I was like, yo, man, I'm working on this project. I'd really like you to get on it.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, what type? Who else is gonna be on it? I said, I don't know yet, but I'm gonna figure it out. But it's gotta be a spitter. Mm-hmm. And Rhapsody and Remy are so this way,
Right.
She's here. They're not in the same type of I wouldn't put them in the same box, even though they're both spitters.
They're different vibes.
And that's what I wanted. It's almost like, it's like putting a Porsche with a Ford. They're both incredible vehicles, but they're so different. And I knew they're not afraid to go at it and put it down and compete. So I thought Rhapsody, at first I wanted to have 3 MCs. I wanted to have Rhapsody and Young M.A. That was the original plan. And I still want to work with Young M.A. anyway because she's just so dope.
Mm.
And but time wise and just shape wise, and it just seemed like the two of them were the only thing needed. And I said I hit it. I sent it to Rhapsody, and I remember Ninth wanted to call me and says, "Dude, leave it just the two. You don't need anybody else on it. Leave it at the two." I
Hmm.
was like, "Think so?" I mean, I still think maybe one. No, leave it at the two.
Hmm.
And Ninth's my boy too. So I said, "All right, done deal. Just two MCs." And I didn't have a title for it. It was just a beat, and it was to the Fatback Band. I can say that because I cleared it. If it's
Hmm.
a clear sample, then I'll give you the sample. So backstroking is a very classic party hit back in my era
Hmm.
when we go to house parties and everything. So the fact that when Remy said she would do it, immediately for some reason, this is my DJ mind thinking, I was like, yo, I want to do a record like Oh My God by Tribe Called Quest with Busta,
Hmm.
with that same type of skip and hop. And I said, but backstroking is such a fast record. And again, it's more of a party, dance record. How am I gonna make it hop to that slower tempo and be funky? And with the technology now and all that stuff, you can load it up into different plugins and Ableton and things like that, and you can alter the speed and still keep the same pitch of the tone.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I said, let's test it and see if it'll match. And I got it. And I said, this is it. So we did that. And then when I let Remy hear, she's like, yeah, I'm in. She started writing her rhyme. And she came like a different day and said, I'm ready to spit it. And I recorded her here. And then we sent it over to Rhapsody, and she sent it back. Ninth recorded her, sent it back. And I was like, wow, this is going to be a banger. And it's so much a banger that Monday we're shooting a video to it.
Oh,
So
wow. Okay. All
yeah,
right.
we're gonna take it back.
Are any of the other tracks getting videos as well, or just that one?
We want to do. I actually want to do them all.
Oh, okay.
Has been touring and been very, very busy with being on the road right now. So to get something immediate, I was like, yo, I don't mind doing the Remy rap joint first, and that was the appropriate title because everybody calls Rhapsody rap anyway. Hey, what's up,
Right.
rap? What's it calls a Rhapsody, and even though Remy, most people call her Rem, but I said let me call it just Remy rap.
Hmm.
It's self-explanatory, and I did the scratches using their voices because Remy always does that on a lot of her records. She goes, Remy, ma. But at the same time, Rhapsody did a radio drop for my radio show.
Hmm.
And just the way she goes, yo, this is Jam the Records Rhapsody. The way she just said rap, I was like, that's it.
Hmm.
Just the tone of it. And I'm overlapping their names over and over and just doing little transform cuts and everything.
Right.
And plus I had to put shout to MCA, rest in peace of the BC Boys. I put with the deaf female,
Oh,
give her love.
nice.
Yeah. So
All right.
it,
So a Nas track, a Run the Jewels track, Remy and Rhapsody. Who else did you pull in for this?
Slick Rick and Lil Wayne collab.
Nice.
And
Nice.
yeah, and
That's a dynamic.
yeah.
You're talking about the separation between Remy Ma and Rhapsody, but Slick Rick and Lil Wayne is even more separate. But simultaneously, they both have like a wild energy to both of them that seems kind of complementary.
Yep. And then we got Joey Badass.
Yeah. On his own track or
Yeah, on his own
on
track.
his own
Yeah.
track. Nice, nice,
Only
nice.
collab with Remy Rhapsody and Rick and Wayne Run
Got
the
it.
Jewel.
Got it.
It's them, Nas for Delph, and then Joey Badass.
So what about generally like your production approach on these tracks? Like, you said that you had to kind of like make a new beat or like retool something for the Run the Jewels track. What is every beat on this thing fresh and new, or did you kind of like dig some special stuff out of the vault for this thing? Like, what was your process in terms of like forming and choosing the beats here?
The only one that I dug in the vault was for Joey Badass, but that
Mhm.
was because Joey was his album is coming out next week,
Right.
and he was just like, yo, I'm in town for a little minute and just for like a week. Well, let me slide by and just pull up, see if we can cook up something. I'm like, all right, come by. It wasn't intended for the EP at the time, and
Mhm.
I was one song short, and we're reaching out to other artists to see if we can get them to do a song, and everybody's schedule is busy, and I'm just like, damn, I still got to come up with one more, and the label's like, yo, we got to start wrapping it up so that we can chronically release these on time,
Right.
so that we reached the 10th birthday with the final release of the 10th one. So I'm just like, damn, man. Now I'm working with Joey for his album. We do the as far as the vaults, we're looking for samples, playing different records. And then I was like, you know what, man? And when we worked on Prom 2 with Ant-Man Wonder, there was a batch of stuff that we did not use. I never programmed beats for him, but just the sounds that he gave me were in a folder. And I was like, you know what, let me go through these, because Joey's like, I kind of want just that melodic vibe with your hard pounding drums. I was like, all right. And that man Wonder just has that dope soundscape. So I start thumbing through stuff from the folder we didn't use for Prime 2. And then there was just that one where Joey goes, that's it. That one, hook that up. Hooked it up. He sat right there where you see where that pillow is on the couch. He sat right there and wrote it. And then from there, he went straight to we have sometimes some people like to record in the room with me. Not That's what Nas wanted to do, and that's what Joey wanted to do. And just a little bit to the right by the door, he set the mic up. He cut the record. After he cut the record, maybe 2 weeks, maybe almost 3 weeks, because he started hitting the road again and preparing his album to get mastered and sequence it. And he said once he sequenced the album, he said it didn't feel like it fit the album the way he has the vibes of everything else that the other producers put into it. And I wasn't even upset about it. I was like, well, if that's the case, that means you're not using it. Can I have it? He's like, yeah, you can have it. I said, one more question. Can I put it on my EP? And he's like, man, I got singles dropping and this and that. It can't interfere with that. I said, we're not dropping these singles. We're just dropping the EP in one shot. And he's like, well, if you're doing that, then, and no singles and just dropping the EP, you could go ahead and put it out. I was like, so really, I feel like I made his album anyway, because when his comes out and he has a new album, he's also got a brand new one on this EP. And He's the first song. Yeah, because his song is him going Joey Bad and Big Preem, and it's called Letting Off Steam. And just the fact that it sounds like he's like, yo, we're getting ready to rock now before the EP goes any further. So it's a blessing, man. It was a blessing in disguise.
Let me ask you a little bit about the process with the new Nas track and everything. Obviously somebody who you not only have a lot of admiration for as an MC, but somebody who, your work with him goes back decades and decades and decades at this point. Right. What is it like for you at this point to be, obviously working together again and kind of like be in a point where, hey, it's like we're still here after all these years. We're making another track. We have so much time and so much experience to reflect on. How does that, impact the process of coming together with a new song from scratch with him? Like,
with Nas is different because we're so used to working together that we're always, but whenever it's almost like there was a pause button, and as soon as he walks in the room, Preem, what up? And then the vibe is just already there. It's not like, damn, man, it's been 20 years, which it has been, since we worked. We just, it's like right back to it from the time he said goodbye last time I saw him, it's studio wise. And then from there, we worked on a couple demos, and he was like, yo, man, we should take it back to some classic breakbeat shit, like in the park jams with all the ultimate breaks and beats. I always got to shout out Breakbeat Lenny and Breakbeat Lou. Rest in peace to Breakbeat Lenny, who passed back in 1996. The era before sampling, it's kind of the era before sampling, but sampling was starting to take place because of these ultimate breaks and beats that they created. And that was a big chunk of where it went to doing it in the drum machine. So being that all these different volumes were released, and every artist you could think of was trying to get the latest volume so that they could make a hip-hop record off of it before somebody else did. He said, it just reminds me of the park jams, just being out, cookouts, and the DJs just playing all the breaks. And I was like, I'm with that. So we just started thinking which break, from Take Me to the Mardi Gras to NT to Nautilus, or you name it, scratching or and then I was like, man, theme, even Impeach the President. I was like, oh, God Made Me Funky. And I was like, man, Theme from the Planets was a classic. And one of the last times I ever heard it was when Kid and Play dropped their first single last night. back in the days. And really, I've heard, so that was the most classic one that ever used it back then. I was like, I could revisit that. Being I had it in my Serato, I was like, we got to figure what parts to take to loop it up. I cue pointed 5 pieces and just started doing them manually in my Serato just to say, hey, you like this? And he's like, yo, what the way you're doing it in that order, lay it down like that. And I was like, cool. And laid it down. Added more to it later, but he was like, just give me that just in a simple loop, the way you're doing it. And we could add on to it later. I want to take that home.
Mm.
He got home to LA. And when he came back into New York, he's like, yo, I'm ready to work on that one. we put it down and he wrote it right there on the spot. Mike's right here to my right, and he went to town on it. And he did the first verse, and then he said, I'm gonna write a second verse. He did it at home when he had to go back to LA. When he did it, the energy was a little more lower than the first one.
Mm.
And I'm like, yo, man, we got to get the second verse to match energy wise. But he had to go to Europe on tour. And this just got finished like really right before we just turned it in to get ready to release it. We only probably turned it in 2 weeks ago. So he's in Europe, and I'm like, man, I really want to be with him because we just have a very good recording relationship, man. He's in Europe. I don't remember what country he was in. He got on the phone with me and said, what do you need me to do? I said, just match the first verse energy and stay in that world. And he's like, got you. Man, within an hour, they sent it back and they were like, what do you think? Because he's got to go and get back on the road. And he totally matched it.
Great.
To the T. To the T.
Great.
And I was, I was hoping, and he did it. You know what I'm saying? Because I like to be with the artist, especially somebody like him.
Right.
I like to be there to in on everything because I come from the era where we're all in the room together and we get it done tight together.
What I was going to say is like, that whole thing in terms of like chunking out the process in terms of like, putting the track together and like recording it, as you were saying, like, I mean, again, like during the era that you come from, I'm sure like, procedurally that was like pretty unheard of.
Yeah, 100%, so like I said, even going from tape to doing Pro Tools and stuff, I'm used to tape. And even when we had to get an artist on a song, we'd have to make a copy of the reel and ship it to their studio. Like when Casey and JoJo did Royalty, we had to ship the reel and on a copy, and then hopefully they lay it tight. And then you want to make sure hopefully it doesn't get damaged when it gets back to
right.
Because it could warp the reel, all kinds of things, So, and now it's just push of a button, upload, download.
Right, of course. Well, let me ask you, just because you didn't really get into the vibe of it too deep, like what direction did you find yourself going in instrumentally for the Slick Rick and Wayne track?
The Slick Rick and Wayne track is a crazy story. Big up to Logic. It was originally a Logic record that same thing. Yo, I'm in town on tour. I got a day off. Can I come by? Sure. We cook right on the spot. He liked the vibe of the track, and he was like, yo, man, I want to write about a friend of mine that got murdered over a bad situation over money. And so he said, I'm gonna just lay this down, go back on the road, and I'll come back to it some other time. I was like, all right, laid it, loved his verse, loved the whole emotion of what he was saying and how things can go wrong over things when you're hustling in the street. Excuse me. And then from there, man, that's the only one that was done in this particular process. Just put it to the side, and then when the pandemic hit, I started working on a solo album because it was nothing else to do, and everybody's home so it's like this is the best time to reach out to people for features.
Right.
No one's going anywhere. I was like, you know what, that Logic one is still dope. Let me see if somebody like Wayne would get on it because he could talk about money. And I sent it to Wayne, and he sent it back the same night, like, yo, rock out. So when I did that, I sent it to Logic, like, yo, guess what? Got Wayne. He's like, oh, man, I did that verse on something else. I was like, no way. He said, yeah, don't worry about it. I'll write you a brand new banger, which he did. But it was more about just spitting dope rhymes and not about money. So I wanted.
So it was a totally different track entirely.
No, same track, different rhyme.
Yeah.
But now the rhyme is not on topic about money now because Wayne wrote his based off of what Logic wrote.
Okay.
So now I'm like, hey, Logic, the verse you gave me is so dope. I want to put some a whole different beat, like some hard, just get busy type rhyme, and I mean type beat, and we'll just come back to it later. And he was like, all right, cool. He said, just tell me whenever you got it switched so I can hear it. I was like, cool. So now that removes Logic. Now I'm like, who can talk about money that now that Wayne's is the second verse and is based off of Logic's rhyme? I was like, you know what? Slick Rick would be the best of generations of the gap that could talk about money with him being so flamboyant and so dope and flashy. So I was like, you know what? Reach out to Slick Rick, and shout to his wife Mandy, who got him to get on and just listen to it right away. And he was like, yo, I love it. Let me. He said, do you want a hook or do you want a verse? I'm like, can I get a hook and a verse? He said, yeah, we can do both. And I gave it to him. He laid it down, sent it back, sent it to Wayne for approval. Wayne loved it. And the next thing you know, we got the root of all.
It's so funny because like, again, like in terms of like process, when you think back to how these tracks were made, like back when you were starting, like again, completely unheard of. Like how many instances were you in where you're like, okay, recorded with this guy, then threw another guy on there like months later, then removed the first guy and then put him on then him with another beat and then threw in somebody, a third person after the fact. Like it's,
Yeah.
I mean, as you kind of like take that in, does it kind of seem, in a way like crazy to you to be able to kind of like land a track in that way after like so many different switches?
Yeah, and yes and no, because of the fact that with the process of how we can just mail something out and get it right back,
Right.
where people are comfortable where they are just to record it. The main thing that I always worry about, really two things. One is not being with them to really make the magic happen together, all in
Mm-hmm.
the same room. Secondly, I really like to be hands on with every part of the process, because that's how I've made all the records that everybody considers classics.
Right.
We all together every time.
Let me get this out of you if you'll go into it, because as you were kind of referring to there, working with artists in person, making the magic happen, the kind of rapport that you have with Nas and what you like, discussed in terms of like one verse with you being a certain way, then the next verse he recorded, the energy wasn't right, had to re-record it and everything. Like, when you're talking about being there in the studio with somebody and kind of like maybe having certain standards or expectations for a track or like an energy with an artist, like, would you say in a way you're playing like a directorial role, like you're
I,
kind of like stepping in and be like, no, it needs to be more like this and that and so on and so
oh
forth?
yeah, oh yeah. I feel like it's like coaching.
Mm.
Yeah, the players know how to play and run the. If it's football, they know how to run the ball. They know how to score. They know how to use their speed. They also have mental ideas of how to make a play work, so you
Mm.
can get a touchdown or whatever. Same thing with me, but the coach enhances your ability even more, because I see things that you may not see. You
Mm.
may be in the booth laying your verse, and I'm like, damn, he squeaked right there. He may not have heard the squeak because he's in there delivering it. And then once we stop, I'm like, yo, man, you squeaked right there on that part. Then they might be like, no, I didn't. It's like, play it back.
Mm.
Play it back. It's cool though. Nah, I really want you to get it tighter.
Mm.
All right. Sometimes they're like, nah, it's cool. And it's like, no, it's like, as a producer, we have to listen so intently
Mm.
to what we expect, especially if we are a fan of you already. Because if I'm a fan, I already know where you could. Again, sometimes you got to do the whole line over or the whole rhyme because you're just not delivering it right, or the tone is just a little too amped or a little too not amped, and it's like meet in the middle. And I'll do all of that. Meet in the middle, or you're starting to drift off with your tone. You might be like da 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 da. It's like, yo, right from that point we can punch in, but you got to pick it back up and keep your tone. And all of that is just for me being like a really really big fan of being able to watch the process happen. And then doing so much even with Guru when we did Gang Starr records, and he would fix whatever I told him to fix, or not told him, asked him to fix. I would be like, yo, man, can you just fix that line where you said I'm going back and then I'm opening the door? And he goes, cool. And he might do it 3, 4, 5, 6 times until it's right. But you just know that's the one.
Mhm.
Even when I lay scratches, sometimes my engineers will be like, yo, that was dope. I'm like, nah, do it again. They're like, nah, dude, that was dope. I'm like, dude, I know when it's the right one just because I'm so hard on myself to get it right. And that's how much from listening to Prince albums and watching the Jackson 5 perform and going to a U2 concert before they were multi platinum and huge and super worldwide. Like all of that comes into how I study to be as great as them. Seeing the Police live, seeing Iron Maiden live, Van Halen live. Seeing that Rage Against the Machine and opening up for them on the Full Clip tour, and seeing how they perform and just give it their all, and even how they make the records. I'm like, all of that I study to this very day.
That's why I think sort of what you said a little earlier was kind of funny, because you were talking about, oh man, the pressure's on. Like I got to be the first one to do this whole thing. It's like, but the thing is like, what's harder, being DJ Premier doing the first EP or being the guy who has to come after DJ Premier? because of the high level of expectations that you have for yourself and everything that you put out.
And all 10 albums are going to be a boombox. Cool. So I don't know if you saw.
Yeah, it all come together. Yeah.
Yeah, you saw the artwork with the boombox.
Yeah.
So each volume will have a different boombox based on that particular producer. So I think Swiss is after me. Don't quote me on that, but I think he's after me. And if he is, I'm looking forward to hearing his, because
sure.
He's another sound, another style. And Swiss is always excited all the time.
For sure.
He's like zone.
I wanted to ask you like an opinion on something that somebody like I saw somebody talking on the internet about this the other day, and it kind of made me reflect on it. And obviously this is something that like comes from your era as like a phenomenon and like a delivery method for, like a hip hop track. But like somebody was talking about like just observing that there just not being as many, even though there are a lot of good MCs out there, and you kind of got into this in your own way when you were talking about the Remy and the Rhapsody track, like, oh, does it need another person? It may not need another person. Like somebody was observing that there aren't just like as many posse cuts as there used to be, like back in the day. And I just kind of wanted to know if like you thought that was, also the case, and if maybe that's something that, you still like have a heart for, or, you think like there's still room for if somebody were to bring it back.
With posse cuts?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, for us, we always look at Marley Marl's The Symphony as not the birth of the posse cut, because obviously, you have the Treacherous Three doing things together. You have Spoonie G doing stuff with the Sequence back in the days, and Sugar Hill Gang meets the Furious Five and stuff like that. So Funky 4+1, just so many different records of everybody collabing back then. But as far as it becoming almost the norm, I gotta say it's Marley Marl The Symphony, because after that, now everybody wanted to get it. That was a super all-star. Kane, G-Rap, Craig G, and Master Ace, and then Marley on the boards. And then the next thing you know, everybody's getting features all of a sudden. When we were promoting albums prior to that, you're in the radio station going, yeah, new album's dropping. This is our new single. Then we're dropping this one for our next single. Now, every time you do an interview, the first thing they say is, so who you got on the album? Who are your features?
Right.
Which was not a thing. It was never about who's on it. It was just like, yo, another solid body of work. We're looking forward to it. Can't wait to hear it. Now everything is who you got on it.
Right.
And that's before you even hear it. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, you got these people, okay. And getting those features, man, it's so new to my era. But the posse cut will always, I think, from this very point, be dope. A dope thing.
Yeah, I mean, for better or for worse, like as you were kind of saying, the feature has kind of almost become like almost maybe followed by whoever you have doing production on the record. It's really kind of become almost like a main mode of promotion for whatever it is that you're putting out, mm-hmm. and also like, a way of kind of getting people to stream your tracks as well, because now it's like all algorithmic at this point. The moment somebody looks up a certain artist, they're finding all the tracks that they were featured on as well, mm-hmm. when they're on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever.
Yep. And that's the thing. I saw a clip with Beyonce saying, I still want to make albums, because she said a complete body of work is the best thing. She said the same thing, like, now it's just playlists. You may have one song off your album and not even listen to the rest because they like that song.
Right.
The rest of it doesn't stream or do as well. Where for us, it was the album. So for me, I like to kind of meet in the middle. I understand now, my manager's very heavy into that world, and he's schooled me on how that works. And I started to, even with posting, yeah, don't post this at such, and make sure when you post this way, you do it this way with the screen. And and he's very adamant about it, doing it right, which I want it done right as well.
Mm.
But at the same time, I don't want to abandon the album method, because for anybody that's of my fan base that are still living, if they're alive, they're gonna still want the album method of it.
Right.
And it does, and that's, I think I'm gonna always stay with that approach, because once an album is out, they can yap whatever one they want, but put it in album form. Now you could do an interlude or a skit, and it could get lost in yapping it for a playlist, because the album runs a certain way to set up that song.
Mm-hmm.
And now you could lose it because somebody's just like, oh, that's a song I like. And that's all they want. And everything else doesn't coincide, or that skit or interlude that was setting up that record is not there no more, because you didn't click that one, unless you make that a track.
Right.
And if you make that a track, you may be like, I don't want that, because that's just talking or whatever. I don't want that in my playlist.
Right.
So
you talk about the ways in which you may need to be hyper aware, maybe even like anal retentive about like promoting or releasing certain things because of the way that the internet has kind of like played out and has affected like the way that music's been marketed. And you talk about the album format and wanting to adhere to it. Given the way things have changed and shifted, be it the album format or anything else at this point in time, like, do you feel at all like ever artistically compromised? Like, I need to make sure something like flows or sounds a certain way because of the way people are listening to these things? Or do you feel like you have free range to just do whatever you want at this point?
Yeah, I'm gonna always do whatever I want and stick to what works for me, because I and then I know what I like. Whatever pleases me, I think you got to please yourself first, and I got to please myself to say, yeah, I like this record, and now let's move on to the next one, because I'm going to always be versatile with anything that has to do with being more than one song involved. So even with the EP, that's why even if Joey said I could keep it, if it didn't, like what he said to me, mine didn't sonically fit the shape of what he already had, previous to my song getting added, and as much as he loved the song, he said it doesn't fit. That doesn't bother me, because he's obviously has a vision that he's looking for when people hear the album. Me, same way. If I didn't feel like his record would fit the EP, I'd still be on a search for somebody else to make a record with me. But I was like, you know what? His really sounds like the beginning of it, from the way he talks at the very beginning before the beat drops. So I was like, this is so right. And I'm very adamant about the sequence. I will always be adamant about the sequence of anything I do.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to move on to some other stuff outside the EP really quick and ask you, just because there's so many questions about it in chat. So many people who are watching enjoyed that crossover that you had with Kanye in the Game, earlier this year for the Donda record and everything.
Scratching on Easy.
Yeah, on Easy. Just if you care to for a second, just like go into just your involvement with that track and how you got reached out to, and just like the connection that was made to kind of bring you into that.
Yeah, I was actually just putting my son to bed, because it's time for bed. He had school in the morning, and I was putting him in bed, and I was just laying in bed with him, just talking, and he was showing me something on YouTube before he went to bed, and he's very into finding just really unique things, to watch, and it was something that he was watching already that was going to end in about another 5 or 6 minutes. So he's like, Dad, can I just watch the last 5 or 6 minutes? I was like, yeah. So I watched it with him. Right. So I had my phone on his nightstand. And then, how you just kind of grab your phone, look at it, and it said missed FaceTime call from Game. I hadn't talked to Game in maybe 2 years, if that, maybe more. So when I saw that, and it was, near the, it wasn't top of January, but just looking at the phone, and I was like, well, a missed call can be a pocket dial, but this is a missed FaceTime. That's weird. So I texted him. I said, yo, Happy New Year, brother. I said, did you FaceTime me or was that a pocket dial? He said, nah, FaceTime me. He said, I'm with two people that want to say what's up. He said, can you call right now? I said, well, let me put my son to bed and I'll hit you in a few. He said, well, man, they're gonna be leaving soon. So can you do it? And I'm already like, who the hell is it? And I was like, son, I'm gonna make a quick FaceTime call, all right? And then he goes, okay. He's still next to me. And then when I hit it back, Game answered it. And he's like, yo, like this is the phone. He's like, yo, these guys? And he turns it, and I'm like, oh shit. I said, what up, yay? And then he goes, and what about this guy? And he turns it again. It's Pusha T, and I'm like, yo, what's up, everybody? What y'all up to? We just started to talk. So he gives Kanye the phone, and right when he gives Kanye the phone, my son goes, Dad, was that just Kanye on the phone? So that makes Kanye go, who's that? Because he's not in the shot in the screen. He said, who said that? So that's my son, and I turned it to where you can see my son's next to me. He goes, oh, that's your son. He's like, hey, man, blah, blah, blah. Your dad's my inspiration. One of my inspirations, XYZ. And I didn't know they were recording our conversation. And then it's funny, my son's mother, it was out at a dinner, and she's texting me going, hey, this is after we got off the call, because when we were on, I said, what are y'all working on? They said, they said a few things together and separate. I was like, oh, wow, that's going to be crazy. And he's like, yo, need something from you. I was like, man, I'll cook something later on in the week. And then that's when they said, well, actually, we need some right now. We need some scratches. And
right now in the middle of bedtime.
Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, I said, I already left the studio, which I was planning on going home now, and they were like, well, it's just one thing, but we just want you to freak it the way you just be breaking up the words from easy. And I was like, well, send it to me now. And my engineer just got home, and he lives on the other side of Brooklyn from where I'm at. And it's a quite a hike in Brooklyn where he's at. And I was like, yo, man, is there any way you could drive back? I know you just got home to go to bed. It's a Kanye game record. And he's like, I'm on my way. So when he comes back, and then right when I'm getting ready to get my things together, my son's mother texts me and goes, hey, somebody said that you and our son is talking to Kanye West. And I'm like, how do you know that? Because, it just happened. And how did she know that? She said, one of my friends just told me she saw it. And I'm like, how?
Like on social media?
Yeah. And right she's saying that, my manager's saying, yo, look, and send me a tweet that Kanye and them posted. They posted.
Yeah.
And I put it on Twitter. So now I'm like, oh shit, they put it up. So now that's going all over the place, everybody's hitting me up like, yo, you're doing this, you're going to be on the record. And what's it for? And I'm like, yo, you saw the clip. He said he needs scratches. So Kanye said, I'm going to send you a video, which I still have, of him doing how he kind of where he wants me to place it. Because he said, I'm not even going to sing you the whole song. I'm just going to sing you the section that I need you to do it. And then I'm going to sing it in a video to let you hear how I kind of want you to do it, but then still freak it the premiere way. I'm like, all right. He sends me the clip. I lay it down, send it back to them. They're like, that's it. And next thing you know, they're like, midnight dropping the record.
Nice. So literally just like minutes before the whole thing was going to come out, it was pulled together.
Yep.
Incredible. Well, I mean, again.
And this is the second time he's done it. When we did Everything I Am, he hit me up at 5 a.m. And I picked up. As soon as I picked up the phone, he goes, I knew you'd be up because I'm a late bird.
Right.
So 5 a.m. is nothing to us. And, we're the same way. We go to bed at 6 a.m. and get up at 6:30 and full of energy. Not like, oh, man, I'm so tired. Ready to rock.
Got it.
Yeah, motors.
Well, I mean, listen, it's been a great conversation. I don't want to pull any more time from you. I'm sure you're a busy guy and you got to get other shit done. But look, we're looking forward to the EP. Again, I appreciate your insight and your thoughts. And again, Midnight, the first installment of the series, and we're looking forward to hearing it. Thanks for giving us.
Have me on the needle drop, man. It's dope.
Of course. I appreciate you coming through.
Good questions.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Much love to you. And anytime you need me, we're here.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Well, have a good one, man.
Everybody, thank y'all for having me. Thanks for tuning in.
Mm-hmm.
And Hip Hop 50 Volume 1. Midnight is dropping. Run the Jewels, Joey Badass, Nas, Slick Rick and Lil Wayne, Remy and Rhapsody. Woo-wee. Let's get it.
That's as good as an outro as we're going to get. Thanks for coming through, man.
One more. Woo-wee. There you go.
All right, have a good one.